this morning after waking up and feeling each and every one of my bones creak as I did so at noon, I went and I grabbed the book I've been reading, which is The Art Spirit by, I don't remember the author's name. I'm actually going to put it in the description because that's bad. I always do this with books. I don't know why. Unless it's a famous author, I'll never remember it. But anyways, I read a quote in there this morning. I'm not going to get it exactly. I'll probably be titling the episode that if it's not too long. And it's something along the lines of like, you can either choose to live in the past or live in the future, because right now is a mere moment. And I was actually floored. Like, I put the book down. It was one of those quotes you ever, like, you're reading and you get to that part and you're like, whoa, and you gotta put the book down. It's so good. It was one of those quotes. Because I think it did what, as I always say, all great books should do, and it put something into words that I'd been feeling for a long time. And that comes with this advice of live in the moment, right? Because I've always been so bad at it. Not in like the traditional sense of like I'm out at a party and I can't live in the moment. Like, of course, I think everyone's really good at that. I'm more so mean like, living in the right now, being like, oh, these are the best times of my life, even, which is a piece of advice that I, as a younger person, get a lot. I'm sure if there's, I'm gauging that the people who watch these are probably around my age of like early to mid to 20s to like late teens, something like that. So I'm sure you all get this advice a lot that's like, live in the moment, experience right now, this is the time of your life. And I've always been really bad at that because it's like, the moment is so fleeting, is, always how I felt, is like how am I supposed to live in the moment when I know that tomorrow is coming? You know what I mean? Especially with how the world is now too, I feel like it's just so hard to be like, I'm just gonna live for today and not think about tomorrow and, be okay doing that. I don't know, maybe I'm weird for this, but I just feel like unless you're like really in a very comfortable spot in life already, I think that's a really hard advice to like practically apply. And I also, was thinking about it from the lens of the way that everybody really doesn't want to be living in this time we're in right now, I feel like. And this is more of like a cultural thing, because I feel like everybody is either A, romanticizing the past, or B, trying to find the next big thing. They're back to the quote, they're recognizing almost that like I can live in yesterday or I can live in tomorrow, because right now is like gone. Like, and that's kind of how it feels, right? It doesn't feel like, when I'm starting something like a Paint&Talk, right? It feels almost like I gotta be like, okay, this that I'm recording right now is coming out in a couple days. Like what do I want to do for this? You gotta think ahead a lot. Or you gotta be like, I really want to retreat to a time that's different than this. And I think Paint&Talk is a great example of this. I try to avoid doing meta talk here, but I'm gonna do a little bit of, if that's not too bad. When it came to deciding to do Paint&Talk, there was definitely a bit of a wariness around being like, I'm gonna paint on camera every day. Because it almost, to me, felt like, imagine a novelist was trying to get their novel sold, so they wrote every day while talking to an audience on a Twitch stream. Like, it feels so weird, because we're used to these arts being this very, what's the word for something that's like solitude? Like, not solemn, but this very like individual thing, like you're sitting alone painting. It's very, you're deep in thought and all these things. And like, I think everyone, and I want to say that we were talking about this a little while ago in Paint&Talk, everyone loves that idea of like this very romanticized artist who's like shut off from the world and just working in a bubble. And like, we're just not in that time anymore. There is actually, funny enough, I don't know of anybody who's directly writing while talking to their audience on a Twitch stream, but there are those people that make TikToks where they're like romanticizing their writing process. They're getting dressed in like the most elaborate clothing and writing in the most scenic place. I think they're cool. People hate on these. I kind of think it's cool. And like, also, this goes back to the whole quote of like, you gotta live in tomorrow. Like, that's where things are going, Like, it is cringe to do that, or to do this even, to be like, I'm going to paint for an audience. But as much as I don't think it's going to be me because I'm not a good painter, probably like the next big painter will be coming from the internet. I don't think that, I don't think that we're in a time anymore where everyone's just going to find a painter and be like, no, this guy is the next Picasso. I really don't see that happening. I mean, maybe, if an extreme fortunate, like series of lucky events happens, I don't think it's impossible by any means, but the era of having somebody who is a famous novelist or who is a famous, painter, or what's like something else, poets, I guess, used to be famous, they aren't really famous like that anymore. Like the era of having these people be public has dramatically shifted because of how we're consuming things now. Brandon Sanderson's actually a great example of this. He writes this series of sci-fi books. My dad reads them. I've never read any of them, and I can't remember the name of them right now, which is really bad. But, back in the day when a novelist was big, you could like show up and talk to them. I remember there's this story about a guy who showed up at Ernest Hemingway's house, and just like went on a boat with him for a week and, talked to Ernest Hemingway for a week. And like, as much as, that's like an insane story and that wasn't how everyone was having it, there's a lot of circumstances in which like you could show up at a college lecture of somebody who was a famous, a person in a field. The movie Oppenheimer, I'm sure a lot of you have seen that. It was a huge movie. There was a scene like that where, like at the beginning, they were like, you should go over to him and just like go see his college lectures on physics. And that's how things used to be. Nowadays, I think it's really smart that Brandon Sanderson is acknowledging like that's not where things are anymore. People aren't going to show up to my lectures at BYU, so he's recording them and putting them on the internet. And you know what? He said it in one of the talks, and I think that he's definitely onto something there. He's like, I am one of the most famous living novelists. And I think that him doing stuff on the internet, recognizing that's where things are going, is definitely a big part of it. I think almost that, I've talked to a couple other creators about this, and I mean, they tend to agree. I think everyone has a slightly different perspective on it. But I think almost like the whole world hasn't really caught up to the true definition of what an influencer or a content creator is. I think that right now we're in this space where it's almost treated, again, I don't think anybody's ever come out and said this, but it's almost treated as like people whose success is subject to an algorithm on the internet, right? People who post and their success is subject to numbers and measured in algorithmic, like what's like how far something goes, algorithmic range, right? That's kind of how we treat the influencer. But I think personally that in the coming years we'll change that definition to just simply artists who use the internet as their medium. Because I think that's what it really is if you look at it, and I think that's where everything is going. And that's why, the quote, to kind of try and bring things back here as I finish off this painting, that quote of, you can choose to live in tomorrow, you can choose to live in yesterday, hit me so hard, because it's like, that's exactly what we all are doing right now. Even though every single artist I know who does stuff on the internet, who paints online and posts them online, or who writes and are trying to be a novelist by the internet, none of them like the fact that they do it. I don't think anybody is like, or maybe that not so much that they dislike it, but more so that I don't think there's many of them I know who are like, no, like the internet is the coolest place to be doing this. I think all of them, I don't want to speak for them, which is why I'm not going to, name names to any of my friends who have said this. They would much prefer the old method of like just sitting somewhere and like being solitude. Well, solitude, that was the word. Was it? Is solitude a word? Either way, being alone and just working on their craft. I think they all love the image of that so much more, but they all have come to the recognition independently that like that's not where things are at these days. That's not really how things work anymore. If I want to be a creative, and it's a big thing that music people complain about too, of like, if you want to be an artist, you got to be proficient in TikTok now. And it's like, all of them can complain about it all they want. Like, that's just the way things are going. You know what I mean? There's never been a period in history where artists and people who are just trying to live life weren't trying to catch up with the world around them moving. The world is always going to be really annoying. Like, there's always gonna be something out there. Like, for an example, I love doing this. I think I'm born in the perfect time right now where I can be like, I get to paint and talk to people while I do it. I think it's super cool. But I don't love the editing process every day. Like, that's annoying. I hate camera work because it's so finicky. It fell down in one of them. That's annoying. You know what I mean? Like, the world around you and your circumstances will always annoy you so much. They just always will. And I think that's why people who have seen that, like, right now is already basically past. It's passing every second. The past is gone, and as much as we all love it, it might not be practical right now to live in the past, right? So I think it's awesome that I know so many people who have said, you know, I'm gonna live in the future, and you know, I'm gonna see where things are at. I'm gonna see where things are going. I'm gonna try and be where the river is about to flow next. You know, I think that's awesome. Anyways, the painting is done. I'm doing, as I mentioned, the spirals. I realized while I was editing yesterday that I probably shouldn't have just like told you guys what the next 3 paintings are gonna be, because I think it's way cooler if you're like, oh, I wonder what you're gonna paint today, and that's kind of spoiled that. So my bad about that. Won't let that happen again. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed today's discussion. I was kind of debating talking about it or not, because I felt it might be a little bit like insider baseball. You know, if you're somebody who maybe isn't directly an artist, I don't know if you could really relate to this as much. But I thought, you know, a big part of the art spirit, which is the book I'm reading, is that like everybody is an artist in one way or another. And that's something I've always said, that like life is art. You have to make artistic decisions just to live every day. So I thought, you know, why not do it? Because maybe in a more abstract sense, somebody watching this will get something out of it of like, oh, I should do that with my life. Or, you know, that problem I've been having in my head is like that. Most likely, though, I think a lot of people are probably just like, what is this fucking guy talking about? And that's okay, too. Anyways, check this out over on the Instagram. You guys know the drill, all the angles, the bickety bam, and everything else. And it's just a yellow spiral. I don't think you really want to go see this one today, but do it anyways, because that's the routine. As I wrap this up, that's the whole thing. And until next time, guys, gals, and pals, my name is Max Dice. This has been Paint and Talk episode 56. I'm here every morning, painting and talking with you all.